this panel is all about brand activism. And I think the reason that Sinead and Lauren kindly invited me to host this panel is because I'm a co-founder of Form. And at Form, we believe that we can realize the greatest version of yourself while caring about others. We are the first UK protein and supplement brand to have a B Corp certification. And on a personal level, I believe that if you're not in business to do good in the world, what is the point? But at the same time, this landscape is quite a challenge one to navigate. So today, I'm joined by these three experts in the field who are going to tell us how to navigate this evolving landscape in an authentic and also legitimate way. So can you please give a round of applause to first Alec Mills, who is the co-founder of BAME. So please come in. And then also Chris Tanner, who is the executive director of B Labs. And also Duncan Skipper, who is the co-founder of Skip and Skipper. So welcome and thank you very much for being here. And I'm going to start with a question to all of you. And that is, today, across the board, there is now a heightened demand for business to have a purpose beyond profit. How have you seen the role of brand purpose evolve? And how has it impacted your business or brands that you work with? Who wants to be the first one to start?
Oh, good.
Yes.
Well, I guess purpose comes from a need, and never has the world been in more trouble than it is now. We are consuming too much in a way that's irresponsible. We are living our lives in a way that's not sustainable. And on an individual level, obviously, we can do so much. But if we are a business and you can do 10 times more, 1,000 times more, and you can on an individual level. So I think what's happened and what B Corp's been really successful about is getting that need for impact and purpose and officiating it and growing it in a way that now is on a much more corporate level.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, I think it's interesting to start off by kind of thinking about how the word purpose has become, a word that we're all kind of comfortable with and know what we mean when we say purpose. I got into this because, long story, but I most recently, that's not true. A couple of jobs ago, I worked in international development and did a lot of work with social enterprises and essentially businesses who had business models sort of exclusively designed for purpose, in the sense of sort of having a positive impact on people. And I think what's really interesting now and what's happening with the B Corp movement and with your business and with these businesses is that actually it doesn't need to be a kind of old school kind of model designed to alleviate poverty or have a sort of specific impact such as that, but it can be purpose in a broader sense, which is how can I create a business that has a positive impact on society while also growing as a business and doing something, exciting. So I think it's this sort of evolution of the word purpose goes right to the heart of why it's an interesting conversation now, why it's become something that's in the mainstream. And I think through B Corp you see that reflected in the fact that we're sort of working to look at ways in which businesses embed purpose through everything that they do, so rather than just in, the one specific obvious thing, that might be where they have a positive impact on their customers, for example, but actually throughout the way they treat their people, the way they consider the environment, their whole sort of operation can be purposeful.
Duncan?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting as it puts brand at the front. Like your brand is now the biggest entity. It's not about your product. And I think it's a really special time because you get to talk about the things you care about. And need is the great word. Like you're trying to create a need. Now you can't make anyone need what you do and feel like they need to take it. but you can make them feel. And so I think understanding emotions and how you communicate to people is always going to change, but from a purpose perspective, you can try and inspire people to feel like there's a need for you to do what you do, and a genuine need. And as soon as you can sort of cross that magic over where people understand why you're there to do what you do, that becomes a real powerful message to be able to tell a story through. So brand becomes the heart of that storytelling device, and so your purpose is now, the heart of everything, and what you do is bring out a product that should sustain and subsidize why you're doing what you do. And we're probably going to come up here and sound a little bit like Simon Sinek, but the need doesn't come from what you do or how you do it. The need will come by how you explain why you do what you do and make people believe that there's a genuine need for you to be doing that. And I think that's where storytelling and the device of communication becomes really, really important. But brand becomes the forefront, and your product sort of settles as a way of supporting and proving that.
I think like genuine, and also being awake to the needs, that it is not waiting for like government to take action, but realize that business, we can have an impact, we can have a contribution, we can all play a role in this. So I'm going to now ask Chris, because becoming a B Corp is one way a business can show its commitment to have a positive impact. Have you seen a rise in companies waiting to become a B Corp? And what do you think is driving that?
Yes, we have. I mean, I've been at B Lab since the beginning of the year, since the turn of the year, and even in those 6 months, I feel it accelerating, and I know that that's sort of momentum that's carried on from previous years, and which is incredibly exciting. I suppose, first of all, in terms of the number of businesses who want to be B Corps, so the number of businesses who are having conversations like this, within the business and thinking about how they can embed that purpose. But also the diversity of the types of businesses that we're speaking to. So businesses of all different sizes, from startups through to multinationals, businesses in different sectors and industries. And I think that's kind of an interesting. There's an interesting kind of brand element to that, and storytelling element to that. Tying into what you're saying with the B Corp certification, which is the fact that it is a common language for purpose as well as certification. It becomes a common language. It becomes a way of looking at the way in which you map kind of equivalencies for different types of businesses across sectors, and the way that they embed their purpose. So, and then of course how they can sit that B brand alongside their own brand as a sort of accreditation and kind of public validation of their impact. So yes, we've seen a massive increase. As to the why, that's a massive question. I think we hear lots of different reasons from our B Corps, and we talk about lots of different benefits of B Corp certification, and they're reflected in lots of kind of business benefits. Your business benefits in lots of ways, and we might go on to that a little bit later on. But I think I think in most of the conversations that I have, again, Sinek, it's kind of the why. In most of the conversations I have, it comes down to actually people believe that this is the right way to do business. It's what you were saying at the beginning. What's the point? Unless, purpose is at the heart of it and you want to have a positive impact. And so I think there are lots of reasons, and obviously with bigger businesses, it's less likely, it does happen, but it's less likely to be the CEO saying, this now needs to be a business built around a specific purpose. But I think as you get to smaller businesses, and particularly with startups, everyone who's creating a business now, is creating it with this in mind. And I think that's a reflection of any number of cultural, social, economic trends, public dialogue, things that are happening in the world. And I think it's really exciting.
And I think it's great to actually have institutions who are there to really check if people and companies are doing what they are telling consumers what they are doing, right? So I think that's the value of having an accreditation. So Duncan, what are some of the common things you were seeing from your clients in terms of how they want their brands to be seen in the area of purpose and activism?
I think you first got to look at the sector. So we specialise purely in health and wellness, right? So as a sector, generally as consumers or brand owners, we're all values-based, right? As individuals, we're quite aware of these new notions and this new language of what it means to be values-based and to have a core understanding of why you're trying to be the person you are and what you're trying to be, and you've got quite good morals. So from that foundation, it's really easy to build a purpose. If you jump on the tube at 7 o'clock in the morning and you try and sit with the tradesman and sit between a plumber and a painter and try and talk around, the greater value of why they're there and what they're doing, you're going to get laughed at while they sit there and chug back their 44, milligram bottle of energy drink, and that's the stigma that we need to break down, is that this isn't a hippie new notion, but a bit like London, it becomes a bit of a bubble when you're in this sort of space, because we all are coming from a foundation that supports purpose. And what is really nice about the sector is we support other people. We're not there to rip anyone down. If we see success, we want to support it, we want to talk about it, we want to encourage it, and that's rare. That's why from an agency perspective we've come to play in this field purely, but our story makes sense as well. So you also have to connect things for it to be really authentic. It's not just a great space to be in and say, I want to have a purpose, because people will see through that. And if you're not authentic and your backstory doesn't support what you're doing, it all sort of falls apart. So I think understanding the sector we play in is our greatest advantage, because we've got the opportunity to lead and show other businesses what is so special about what we're doing in this space. And I think that opportunity creates change. And when you can start to create this sort of change, it's got to start internally first. So your purpose is there to fuel a culture. And it's really hard. No one wants to go to work and be told what to do, right? Like, everyone wants to go to work and feel at least like they're a part of something. It doesn't really matter if you're the CEO or the receptionist. How do you feel like you're there to help this company fulfill what it is it's trying to do? And it's just such a magical sort of environment to be a part of when you can connect those sort of dots, because you get to surround yourself with people who care about the things you care about. If you believe in the things I believe in, we're going to get on a lot better. So from a brand to consumer perspective, if you can make people believe in the things you believe, you're going to have relationships that go beyond your product. You can have conversations that go beyond just delivering them value, and it's giving them value beyond reason. And I think that's sort of the ultimate goal and the ultimate opportunity.
And that's a way of actually establishing a deeper connection with your client database. And that's one of the reasons the brands who are purpose-led, they're actually outpacing all the competitors who are not necessarily. So Alec, as a young startup in the wellness space, how important was for them to launch with a purpose? Was there an expectation, or did it boil down to personal passion?
I think one came out of the other. We used to run a subscription service which delivered tampons, pads, vitamins, heat pads, liners to women around the UK. And I would sit in my flat with my business partner, literally packing these things up, just plastic everywhere and cardboard. There was a low point in my life. And the more we did it, the more we discovered that there was plastic in tampons, there was plastic on the applicators, there was plastic wrapping, there were chemicals in the organic cotton. The cotton farms themselves were full of pesticides, and 20,000 farmers a year die from pesticides, and this is going to women's bodies. Women's bodies have these, a tampon user has one inside them for 7.5 years. Major brands were being incredibly irresponsible with how they're branding to girls. And we saw that there was when you get close to an industry, you start to see, a lot more of the sort of ugly truth. And words like 24-hour discreet protection on the side of major brand packages. And you think, if you're a teenage girl and, you're just coming to this important moment in your life, incredibly confident boys and girls up until 9, 10, and something switches and that confidence wanes in teenage girls. And we thought, hang on a second, we're calling BS on it. This industry needs a serious shake-up. And so we set out from the very beginning to correct the plastic in the products, the chemicals in the cotton, and to frankly create a brand that was aspirational, so that girls, women could look at periods and their bodies and I guess womankind in a different light. So our purpose very much wasn't something that we tagged on. It's baked into the very essence of game. And as for sort of the B Corp and all the other sort of stuff that comes out of it, well, there's loads, business is like a sort of an octopus, it's got lots of different limbs and it can reach out and do lots of different things all at the same time. So things like, we're soon to become carbon neutral, we sort of work with local charities, provide things for career property. We have the power to do all of that. And so, I guess we've become passionate about what we do because we recognize that there's such a need for it.
And I think it is through passion that brands becomes disruptive. It is through actually looking what is the landscape and not want to be part of the problem, but creating solutions. You come up with like an incredible brand. It is something that consumers, they want to be part of. So as a woman, and also it's very endearing to listen to you worry about like the health of a woman. So thank you.
Just pick up on your point as well. Because we're doing what we're doing, we're inundated with people who want to work with us because there's so much meaning in what we do. And so the office is a really happy place because everyone's sort of all swimming in the same direction. And becoming a B Corp again, all B Corps are swimming in the same direction. Out of interest, who here has never heard of a B Corp? Doing a job.
So that's a good time for Chris to saying that becoming a B Corp can be a daunting experience. So how can business prepare? And are there any stumbling blocks that are commonly overlooked?
I think it can be quite daunting. I mean, one thing I would say, I think it's a fairly accurate to say that the bigger you are as a business, the harder it is to become a B Corp. I was on the phone at lunchtime to a massive multinational consulting firm who's looking at becoming a B Corp. I mean, we're going to be working with them for years. And there are a series of multinationals who are in the process of becoming B Corps, big global companies, most of them in private. Danone is the one that you guys will probably know about, apart from the people that put their hands up. And it's a multi-year process. There's a clearly huge amount of work to do for those businesses to transform themselves, and indeed to make also what is a fairly fundamental legal change that's required in order to become a B Corp. So some of you will know that to become a B Corp you have to pass an assessment which kind of covers your operations across 5 different categories: workers, environment, community, etc. Intended to be a holistic picture of the business. You also need to, alongside passing that assessment, you need to make a legal change, which is enshrining in the governance of your business essentially the triple bottom line. So alongside your shareholders, it enshrines the benefit of environment and society. And that essentially is directors of a business that gives you the license to operate for the benefit of the world around you rather than just your shareholders. And again, for bigger businesses, that's a big shift. I mean, that's a fairly fundamental shift in the governance of a large organization. Yet again, for an entrepreneur, for a startup or for a SME, that can be a very intuitive shift. That's really the way that their business is heading anyway. They're aligned with that as a kind of core purpose and way of organizing themselves anyway. So both in terms of completing the assessment and in terms of the legal change, I think the smaller you are, the easier it is. I think the one other thing I would say, I've had my I'm not a co-founder anymore like all of you, I think, but I've had my startup days in the past. And the other thing I would say is that our assessment is an incredibly powerful tool. Let's see if you guys agree, actually, but I think it's an incredibly powerful tool for just looking at all the component parts of a business and, the things you need to think about while you're setting up a business or while you're starting to grow or while you're hiring people or while you're putting operations in place and processes in place. So I think it's a very powerful tool for creating a business. I think it's a powerful tool for growing a business. And clearly it's a powerful tool for aligning that business to purpose.
Thank you. Duncan, what are some of the common challenges associated with communicating brand purpose, and how do you work with business to overcome them?
Clarity is the first one. I mean, I think there's 2 points. First, founders are one of the biggest problems because they're so passionate, which is great, but they also get in their own way. But clarity is a massive one. So, I mean, as an honest opinion, like how many people here can really tell me the difference between purpose, mission, vision, having values? Because the people that I work with all the time, they murk these waters. They don't really understand what the purpose is. And I think it's because it's so hard, even as an individual, because let's be fair, we're all brands as individuals or companies, it doesn't matter. You've all got a role or a value you give something that's got a worth to someone somehow. So your values and your mission, they'll change. And quite often than not, your values may not even be true to what you'd like them to be because your actions don't allow it to be. So a lot of people who do a values assessment or do a values test on themselves, it's nice to have. Here's all these lovely words. Let's put all these sticky notes on a wall and let's bundle them together. And these are where our values are. And it's just not true because your actions have to provide proof. I would love finance. I mean, here I am running a business. It should be a high value. Like I should be really into the books and really understanding my own personal and all these sort of things as finance goes. Truth is, it's not. My actions prove it's health and wellness, clearly. It's exercise, these sort of things that trigger. But there are things like, I could call it entertainment, escapism, maybe it's education. I spend so much time on my phone and YouTube watching and learning things to do with sport, to do with interests, but I spend far more time on that than I do finance. So I'm just not living out my values truly. So if you don't understand who you are first, how can you create a purpose of what you're all about? So it's a really hard one because your purpose should never change. It should be the one fixed thing that you're all about, the one thing you want to achieve as a business, the one guiding North Star. And so to get that real clarity, it's a hard one to come about, particularly when you're starting. So where founders get in the way of themselves is, and again, I think it's more about this space because we're so passionate about what we're doing, but they get so excited. I can say it because I know there's people in here that we've worked with as well, but they believe so much in their product. Great, right? But your product is the best thing. No, you don't understand. I've got the best ingredients. Okay, but I source it from a better farm than they do. No, it's about me and the value that I'm doing and what I want my purpose to be is to have the best in this. And it's all about you. When actually your purpose, if you really want to win loyalty and win the hearts and minds of the people you're trying to connect to, it's got to be about someone else. It's got to be about the value you bring to someone else in their life. And I think when you're so close to it, and I think maybe it's why CEOs aren't the ones leading the charge all the time because it's about them too much. And you've got to understand that to have a clear purpose that's going to inspire people to feel like they need what it is that you've got, it has to be about someone else. So it's sort of getting out of your own way and understanding who you are first as a brand, as an individual, as a cohesion of individuals before you can really start to form, what that purpose is. And then that gives you the building blocks for what should be, that North Star that lasts forever.
Thank you. Alec, making money ethically isn't always the most viable route. How has it impacted the way you run Dang, especially as a lean startup trying to grow?
I don't think the two are necessarily separate. I guess legally think 3 examples. We first of all baked in that into our model, into our pricing, into our business. But we have sample packs that we send out to lots of events, and we were looking at the cost of doing these, and then we're looking at all the paper that we'd need and a card to do it all. And then we noticed that when you print a tampon box, you print it on a flat square thing, and a tampon box isn't square and it's laid out flat. And we had all this space around the edge of the boxes, and we thought, well, that's just scrap. I mean, that's going to go in the bin. So we just asked our printer to add to the cutter, extra shapes. And we've squeezed, 3 times more different products out of this one sheet. And that cost us absolutely nothing. And now we can go around and sample to people having, a zero carbon footprint. The second one is we were short on people to pack the sample boxes, for example. And I walk past a homeless shelter every day on my way to work. And I sort of got chummy with one of them, and we kind of always say hi as we're going past. And I just asked him one morning, I said, do you want to come upstairs and pack some sample boxes? And he said, yeah, I'd love to do that. So he came up to our office, and he's called Ray, and we have the Ray station. And Ray does pack tampons, and he loves military, and bloody loves it. 'Cause it's like loading bullets into a magazine.
Very resourceful, right?
Same.
So Ray is the dream, and we also provide free tampons to women's charities to fight period poverty. Ray can keep up with everything that we're doing, so we now said to the charity called Citizens, do you have any women there who'd like to come and help? And as a result of this, Ray is now looking into getting a flat and on benefits, etc. And he's kind of feels part of something, and so it's fantastic. And that hasn't cost us anything. In fact, it's cost us a bit less. But it's really easy to do, and it's all around us. So there's lots of different tiers of how you can do things. On a much sort of larger level, we want to be carbon sequestering. So looking into not just how can we be carbon neutral, but how can we maybe do regenerative farming techniques on our cotton farms so that they actually produce more, do more good than the actual process of making them. That is a much bigger, larger project for when we are bigger and, our octopus is growing a bit. So there's lots of stuff you can do from day dot. It doesn't necessarily have to be punishing or crippling to the bottom line.
And I think that's the main point, right? Is I think a lot of people want to do good, but there is like the fear that this is not going to help you meet your KPIs. But in addition, actually, if you use creativity and if you're resourceful, which is a more exciting way of running a business, right? Doing things the old way is not going to make you a standout. But having an impact on people's life, bringing a solution, it's way more rewarding on a personal level as well. So Chris, there are many financial, social and community-driven reasons that a business would pursue a B Corp certification. Can you outline some of those and how they can be leveraged for growth?
Yeah, this is. I guess it's going back to sort of what I was saying earlier. The why being at the heart of it for I think most B Corps being really kind of mission driven. But there are a whole series of benefits. We have lots of different ways of talking about it, but one of the most kind of immediate is to say is to think about B Corp certification, I suppose, in terms of a certification. And therefore, the benefits that come through doing the assessment, so through actually measuring your own business against the assessment, you guys would probably talk to what this meant in practice better than I can. But in terms of doing that, it's incredibly powerful for actually performing the role of a tool to identify areas where you can change your policies and adopt different practices and innovate to have a positive impact. But also on that kind of certification level, very powerful for engaging employees. So we hear a lot of stories of people going to work for businesses because they're B Corps, or not leaving because they're B Corps, or not wanting to go anywhere else other than another B Corp. So the employee side of it is really powerful. And then the next layer out is the sort of community. So this is where you start looking sort of outside the business and what are the benefits of certification outside the business. And in this kind of realm, you guys could talk to the benefits of the community, but there's benefits to being part of a community of businesses who all want to do businesses in the same way, who all want to share best practice for ways of doing business in that way, who want to do business with other businesses who believe in the same sorts of things. So I think that community benefit is really strong. And I'd imagine, this is a guess, but I'd imagine if you asked all the B Corps, certainly in the UK, because we've got a great UK community, what they love most about being a B Corp, they'd probably say the community. I would imagine, that's a really tangible kind of benefit that they feel on an ongoing basis. And then the next layer out is the sort of, so you've got certification, then community, and the final layer out is kind of movement. So this is a sort of the global movement. There's about 2,900 B Corps around the world now. The idea is they're modelling a new way of doing business. They're proving that we can ultimately reinvent capitalism. to be a force for good. And so on that final level, I think this is where, you know, ultimately the benefits we'll all feel are that you're a leader. You know, you're part of the vanguard. You're part of the businesses and the business leaders that are proving that this is not only a way of growing your business sustainably and positively, but that in aggregate you're changing the world at the same time. So at each of those levels, there's benefits, I think, internally and externally.
And I believe that the role of a leader, it is to inspire, it is to influence, and also it is to bring positive impact. And the leader is not necessarily like the CEO, but in our everyday life, we can all inspire, we can all influence, and we can all bring a positive impact. So I think that's something to bear in mind. Duncan, how can purpose-driven marketing, branding, help set a business apart from the competition? And how can brands measure the impact of these types of communications?
I like this question because it's kind of wrong in a sense. So,
I haven't written it. I'm joking.
Yeah, it's right. I know you didn't write it. Obviously, setting yourself apart is key. So we'll sort of come back to that. But how does purpose and how do you measure that? Well, purpose isn't a fluctuating thing. Your purpose is a constant, like I said before. So how do you do a campaign tomorrow on social and compare it to a TV ad you did a year ago, or you're going to do another one, or you did it too? Like, the purpose was the rock solid thing that made you talk about the things you care to talk about if you're doing this right. So you can't measure the success of that campaign based on how good your purpose was, because that didn't change, right? So you'd have to try and look at the way that you're using that to help you change the conversation within your market, within your sector. Like, there's enough information out there. Like, I don't need another brand to tell me how to make a chicken salad. Like, I can find that out and find billions of results in my pocket now. So what's the difference? What are you doing to help me with that decision? Tell me how that's going to make me feel, because who's doing that? You're going to have this, and if you cook it this way, you might feel like this an hour later, and you actually probably get a lighter sleep because this is what we suggest. Like, make an experience out of the way that you're giving me education, because that's changing the convention. And make it make sense, because your purpose is always going to drive the way you tell these stories. So storytelling isn't all about, from a brand's perspective, oh, tell me your backstory, tell me what got you started, because we've all got those, and those are the sort of stories we get sick of and a bit bored of. But storytell to me daily about the things that you care about, because if I'm listening to them and I'm your target audience, chances are, if you've got it right, I'm going to care to hear that, and then I'm going to want to share that, and I want to be a part of it. So look at how you're changing the conversation, and you're making people, you stop pushing messages on people. And again, I think if we look at this sector, we're already educated, right? We care about the things we're putting in our body. We're so much more passionate. We're educated into the ingredients that go into products. So stop telling people what they need to do, because again, that doesn't stimulate change. Inspire them on why they should do something, and make them feel like they need to do it that way. I need to now have that chicken salad because you've inspired me to feel a different way before I go to bed, or whatever it might be. So change the conversation. I think, how do you measure success on all of that? Well, it's kind of that ROI ideal that we had before. Like, get rid of, and this is a bit hard from businesses, get rid of the return on investment thought, because it's not about that. Return on involvement. How are you pulling people into conversations and involving them in the things that you care about? And that's what your purpose, when it's really nailed down and you really understand that you've got a really good marketing strategy and sort of brand strategy on the back of help drive those messages home. This is how you create a loyal following and attract the people that care about the things you care about. So return on involvement is how you measure.
Thank you. Alec, aligning yourself with a purpose can cultivate greater engagement, but with that also comes more scrutiny. How does they navigate that? And what are some of the strategies you employ when it comes to communicating with your customers?
Well, I mean, when we first tried to find out, on a physical level, when we tried to find out what was in the carton of tampons, it wasn't even cotton, and people wouldn't even tell us what's in normal tampons. There's no legal requirement. Tampons, probably along with Coca-Cola and coffins are probably the most democratized product in the world. I mean, they really are sort of something that everyone should have a say in, right? Because women have no say over whether they have a period. And yet there's no transparency. So a really obvious brand play for us is just to be transparent. Not because we thought it was a clever thing to do, just because the industry needs it. So we have one thing in our tampons, which is organic cotton, and that's it. And that is a very powerful message, I think. And then I guess the transparency runs throughout our business. So we all know what everyone's earning, and we're very open about kind of decision making and everything internally. And then with our customers, we love talking to them. There's no better way of knowing what direction your business should go than asking the people who use it. So we constantly get feedback from them, and then make iterations on what we're doing, and then tell them that they were responsible for that. We're just about to roll out a sort of new version of our reusable applicator. And in it, we're going to actually credit all the people who had suggestions, because then they're part of it. So bring on the scrutiny. I think it's really healthy.
I guess when you're doing something that is authentic, then you have no reason to fear that, right? So we have 10 minutes to the end of the session, and I would love to open for questions. So if you have a burning question, can you please raise your hand? And okay, we have a lady there at the back.
I've just got a quick question about B Corps. And as a consumer, I would like to see more consumer interaction with the B Corp brand. So to be able to go into a supermarket and see products on the shelf which are B Corps, to be able to purchase based on that criteria, is that something that we're going to see in the future?
I certainly hope so. So you can go into the supermarket and find B Corp products on the shelves, like Dame. Waitrose did a B Corp shop earlier this year in February, where they had a waitrose.com/B Corp, I think it was, which was a shop front, with all of the B Corp products that Waitrose stock. And so there was Dame on there, and that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's good. We're launching boots today.
Innocent and Toast Ale and lots of these, and Ella's Kitchen, and lots of these brands do have the B on the packaging and things like that. So it's out there. It is in consumers' hands and in their homes. But I think it's a big challenge for us, or a big opportunity for us, is to make the brand recognised, to raise awareness. It will come, or it's an interesting one for us, because there's, without being complacent, there's almost an inevitability to it, knowing, as I do, about the big brands that are coming through that are going to be certified in the years to come. But at the same time, there's a lot we can do, and a lot more we can do and will do, to kind of empower our B Corps to communicate, what it's all about, why they're a B Corp, why they did it, what it means to them, because it means something slightly different to every B Corp. So yes, I think the answer is yes, but it's going to happen in lots of different ways. And I think just referring back to the last question, which was about transparency, I think that's a really interesting element to it, and getting B Corps to speak about kind of how they got their certification, and actually to be kind of frank and open about where they still need to do work. And all of their scores are published on the B Corp directory. You can see the score of any B Corp in the world and how they score in different areas of the assessment as well. So in that sense, I think we're almost creating a kind of market for who's the best for the world instead of in the world. That's kind of one of our taglines. So yeah, that's all part of it. Transparency sits beneath that kind of key brand. Let's raise awareness.
And we were talking about upstairs earlier. If the more people who join B Corp, the more power there is, and there's more voice. And with Waitrose, we sat down at a table with Popcorn and Ella's Kitchen and a load of other brands, and we invited Waitrose in and said, look, we want to do this, we want Waitrose to come on board, and they listened and they reacted and they did those things that you said, and they actually saw on their website that the B Corp section over-indexed on its success, and now they're into it, and so now we're going to move on to the next people. All right.
Any more questions? Okay, the lady here with the red jacket.
Thank you. I guess a question for all of you, but you might not have the time to answer it. Obviously, purpose has done its rounds a lot, and I'm by no ways belittling it, but in your opinion, given that it needs to stay constant and it needs to be clear, how do you get the balance right between being idealistic but also achievable? What kind of altitude do you try and set it at?
Yeah, perfect. You come to my talk next. So, dream big, man. Like, have your big dream, but there's I'll give it away. Like, think small. Like, you've got to make, the world is telling us big. You know, if you want to get ahead, you got to work harder. You got to do more. Like, gee, who has time for that? Like, I've got enough to do. I'm only going to change this, or I've got to change that. Change is so hard. So the thought of big is really scary, and it can put people off. And now you want to go and think about culture, and you're going to go, right, guys, we're going to do all these big changes. Like, no one wants to get behind that. They'll get behind a big dream, which is where your purpose should derive, but make it attainable, right? Make it in a way that's achievable for everyone. So we sort of have this idea of think small on the back of that. Dream big, think small. But at the same time, it is a constant, and it should be really important to you, but we can't all change the world, right? And we shouldn't all try to. It might not be our role. It's not our purpose in life to do that. But together, if we're here as an industry with the likes of the B Corp conversation and things going on, we've got a chance and an opportunity to change and impact people's lives, right? So regardless if you're a skincare brand or a nutritional brand, we've got the chance to change people's lives in this. And if we want to see things like B Corp become something that is mainstream and can actually make a change, well, we've all got a job to do. So we don't all have to go out there and change the world ourselves, but we can be a part of a change that I think is really, really important, and what makes this sector really, really important. So, yeah, don't be too big unless it's right for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good. We're actually running out of time now. So, but if Chris and Alec have anything else to add, then we can finish here.
Well, there was one last question on the things that we were sent, which is how it affects the wellness space. And I think, if you look at sort of the foods that we eat and what ultimately makes us happy, it's nature and it's the planet. And so I don't think there's ever been a time where protecting the planet has been more relevant to wellness, because we all thrive, when we're in nature, and we all feel healthy when we eat natural food. So I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, everyone who joined us. And just like as a final note, it's about time that we think not only about our wellness, but we also extend for the wellness of others. So thank you. Bye.